Dad grinned. "We got $850K for it." I yelled, "That belongs to me." He hit me. "Do as your parents say." 24 hours later, 50 missed calls. Mom wailed, "The police arrived." I murmured, "Enjoy prison." Can you imagine a parent so consumed by greed they'd try to steal the very ground you stand on? And what if that betrayal pushed you to a point where you had to choose between family and justice, even if it meant sending your own father to prison? My name is Morgan, and for as long as I can remember, I've felt the most at home staring out at the wild, churning Pacific from the Olympic Peninsula. I'm a marine researcher, a scientist who studies the raw, beautiful power of the ocean. But to my family, to them, I'm just the stubborn daughter, a loose variable in their perfectly calculated lives, a big red mark in their ledger of social expectations. Behind me isn't some fancy mansion. It's a weathered cedar house infused with the scent of salt, old books, and damp wool. It hugs a ridge right next to the national park, surrounded by ancient spruce trees dripping with moss, like old wizards with long green beards. To a developer, this land is a gold mine just waiting to be stripped, sanitized, and sold off. But to me, it's the only place on Earth I've ever felt truly safe. My grandparents, Arthur and June, left it to me specifically. They bypassed my dad, Conrad, and my mom, Beatrice, for a reason. They knew my parents saw land as liquidity, not legacy. They saw dollar signs, not deep roots. I still remember the morning I was packing for an 18-month research assignment in Maine. The fog was thick, a protective blanket around the house, blurring the tree line. I was down by the tide pools, checking the water levels one last time. My grandpa Arthur used to bring me here when I was just 7. He'd point to the anemones clinging to the slippery rocks and say, "Morgan, look at how they hold on. The ocean tries to crush them for 12 hours a day, and yet they hold on." He taught me that the ocean gives, but it also takes. You have to respect that boundary. I stood there, letting the cold mist settle on my face, lost in a memory. It was the day Grandpa Arthur died. He'd grabbed my hand, his grip surprisingly strong for a dying man. He pulled me close, his voice a raspy whisper. "Don't let them have it, Morgan," he'd pleaded. "Your father, he doesn't understand the land. He only understands the market. Promise me, don't let them turn this into cash." "I promised," I'd choked out, tears streaming down my face, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. My phone vibrated in the deep pocket of my rain jacket, yanking me back to reality. I wiped my wet, sand-covered hands on my flannel shirt and checked the screen. It was my mother. The text read, "We are 5 minutes away." No question mark, no, "Is this a good time?" Just a stark notification of arrival, like a weather alert for an incoming storm. I sighed, the sound swallowed by the roar of the crashing waves. I wasn't ready for them. I was never ready for them. Being the black sheep of the family meant I was only useful when they needed something, or when they needed someone to blame for their own failures. I trudged back up the muddy trail, my boots squelching, steeling myself for the inevitable. In the mudroom, I kicked off my boots, the heavy thuds echoing. I glanced in the hall mirror. No makeup, messy bun, practical clothes covered in silt. My sister, Paige, would have a field day. She treated every family gathering like a photo shoot for some exclusive lifestyle magazine no one actually read. I walked into the kitchen, put the kettle on. The house was quiet, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock and the distant hiss of the wind. My eyes fell on a framed photo of my grandparents on the mantel. "Give me strength," I whispered to the empty room. I had a terrible, sinking feeling. This wasn't just a social call. They knew I was leaving for a year and a half. They knew the house would be empty. And my father, Conrad, was like a shark. He could smell blood in the water from miles away. I heard them before I saw them, the whine of my father's luxury sedan struggling up the steep gravel driveway. It was a car meant for smooth city pavement, not the rugged, pothole-strewn coast of Washington. It pulled up next to my battered Subaru, gleaming like a sleek black beetle against the wild, untamed forest. My father, Conrad, stepped out first, 65 years old, always in Italian suits, even on casual weekends. He looked down at the mud on his polished shoes with immediate disgust, pulling a silk handkerchief from his pocket to dab at a speck of dirt that wasn't even there. My mother, Beatrice, emerged next, clutching her designer handbag as if the trees themselves might snatch it. Finally, my sister, Paige, 28, beautiful in that curated, filtered way, she was scrolling on her phone, completely oblivious to the majestic view around her. God, it smells like rotting fish out here, Paige announced, her pristine white sneaker sinking slightly into the soft earth. It's called nature, Paige, I replied, leaning against the porch railing, crossing my arms, a physical barrier. Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad. Morgan, my father said, not bothering to make eye contact. He was already scanning the roofline, his eyes narrowed in assessment. You have moss on the shingles. That's going to cause rot. You need to replace the whole roof. I know a guy. It would probably cost $20,000, but it needs to be done to maintain the asset value. The roof is fine, Dad. I treated it last summer, and it's a home, not an asset. It looks cheap, he muttered, walking past me into the house without an invitation, brushing my shoulder as he passed. Inside, they didn't sit, they prowled. It felt like an invasion. My mother ran a manicured finger along the stone fireplace mantel, checking for dust. She grimaced when she found some, wiping her finger on her pants. Paige went straight to the window, holding her phone high, desperate for a signal. My father paced the living room, calculating. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. He wasn't looking at my home. He was looking at square footage. He was looking at liquidity. Then his phone rang. He pulled it out, checked the screen. His face went pale for a split second, a flicker of genuine, raw fear that I had never seen before. He quickly composed himself, walked into the hallway, lowering his voice. I pretended to arrange some papers on the table, but I strained my ears. The acoustics in this old house were excellent. I know the date, my father whispered aggressively into the phone. I said I would have it. You don't need to call the house. A pause. No, listen to me. The liquidity is coming. I just need a few weeks. My stomach tightened into a knot. Liquidity, that was finance speak for cash. Just a few weeks, that was gambler speak for I am in deep trouble. He hung up, walked back into the room, smoothing his tie, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. So, Morgan, Maine, 18 months. That's a long time to leave a property like this abandoned. I have a house sitter, I lied, and a monitored security system. It's not enough, my father cut in, his voice booming. We need to talk about reality. I made tea. They didn't want any, but it gave my shaking hands something to do. We sat around the dining table, the heavy oak table that my grandfather had built 60 years ago. The wood was scarred and stained, full of history. My parents sat on one side, a united front. I sat alone on the other. We've been thinking, my mother began, her voice taking on that sweet, trembling pitch she used when she wanted to manipulate me. With you gone for so long, it worries us. The crime rates, the squatters, the winter storms. If a pipe bursts, nobody will know for weeks. I have insurance, Mom, and neighbors. Neighbors, my father scoffed. You mean the old widow a mile down the road? She can barely see past her porch. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a glossy brochure. He slid it across the table. It stopped right in front of my teacup. The cover showed a smiling elderly woman. A couple playing golf under a palm tree, their teeth impossibly white. The text read, Sunset Ridge Luxury Living, Scottsdale, Arizona. What is this? I asked, looking up at him. Our future, my mother said, reaching out to touch my hand. Her skin was cold. Morgan, your father's arthritis is getting worse. The damp Seattle air is killing him. We need a dry climate. Plus, Paige's boutique needs investors. The banks are being difficult because of the economy. And you want me to do what? I asked, though the pit in my stomach already knew the answer. Sell the house, Conrad said. The mask dropped completely. I have a friend, a developer. He loves this location. He's willing to pay cash, today. We sell this dump, buy the condo in Scottsdale, fund Paige's business, and put a nice chunk in your savings account. Everyone wins. I am not selling, I said. My voice was quiet, but it was firm. Don't be selfish, Paige snapped, looking up from her phone for the first time. You're going to Maine looking at rocks. Why do you need a beach house? Mom and Dad deserve to retire in peace. You're hoarding this place like a dragon sitting on gold. They can retire wherever they want, I said, looking at Paige, but not on my dime. Grandpa left this house to me. He made me promise to protect it. He knew you would sell it the moment he was in the ground. My father slammed his hand on the table. The teacups rattled. Arthur was a senile old fool. He didn't understand finance. Look at you, Morgan. You're 35, single, making pennies as a researcher. You're holding on to a sinking ship. I am trying to save you. I don't need saving, Dad. I need you to respect my decision. The answer is no. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. My father stood up, his face turning a shade of red that clashed with his expensive tie. He leaned over me, his cologne overpowering the smell of the sea. "You've always been an ungrateful child. We gave you everything, private schools, a car when you turned 16, and this is how you repay us? By letting your parents suffer in the cold while you hoard a house you barely use? I live here, Dad. It's my home, and I paid for my own car, if you remember. You leased the BMW for Paige." He stared at me with pure venom. For a second, I thought he might hit me. Then he abruptly straightened up, buttoned his jacket. "Fine, have it your way." He gestured to my mother and sister. "Let's go. She's made her choice." My mother looked at me with sad, disappointed eyes, her greatest weapon. "I just hope you don't regret this, Morgan. Family is all we have." They walked to the door, but the air in the room had shifted. It wasn't just disappointment anymore. It was malice. My father stopped at the threshold, his hand on the doorknob. He turned back, and his expression chilled me to the bone. It wasn't the look of a father, it was the look of a businessman staring at a bad investment. "You know," Conrad said, his voice dangerously low, "we invested a lot in you, Morgan. Tuition, braces, summer camps. We thought you would amount to something that could contribute to this family's legacy." "I am a published scientist, Dad," I said. "I contribute to the world." He scoffed, a short, sharp sound. "You play with mud. You are an investment that hasn't paid off. And now, when we need you, when the family needs you, you turn your back." "I am not turning my back on you. I am protecting my home." "It's not a home," he spat. "It's a resource, and you are wasting it." He opened the door, letting the cold wind rush in. "Don't expect us to visit you in Maine. We'll be too busy trying to survive while you play hermit." They left. I watched them go, standing in the open doorway until the taillights of the sedan disappeared around the bend. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was pure adrenaline. I felt like I'd just been in a fistfight. I locked the door, then bolted it. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood and breathed. Liquidity. The word echoed in my mind. He needed money fast, and he just realized his easiest source of cash, my house, was locked away. Conrad wasn't the type to accept no. He viewed no as a negotiation tactic. He would be back. Or worse, he wouldn't come back. He would do something underhanded. I looked around my living room. My books, my grandfather's chair, my entire life. "They are not taking this," I said aloud. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. I had 48 hours before my flight. I needed to fortify the castle. I drove into town, my mind racing, a sense of urgency bordering on paranoia. The small coastal town was quiet. Tourists longed on. I parked in front of the electronics store. I bought 4 high-end security cameras, small black cubes that could be hidden easily, extra batteries, a Wi-Fi extender, a mobile hotspot just in case they tried to cut the internet line. The clerk looked at me with concern as I piled the items on the counter. "Expecting trouble?" he asked. "Just raccoons. Big ones." I spent the rest of the afternoon and evening installing them. I felt like a spy in my own home. I drilled a hole in the back of a hollowed-out encyclopedia on the bookshelf and nestled a camera inside, the lens peering through the spine. That one covered the entire living room. Another on top of the kitchen cabinets, hidden behind a ceramic vase, covering the back door and the kitchen table where contracts would be signed. The outdoor cameras were trickier. I had to get a ladder. One hidden in the eaves of the front porch, painted to match the wood. The last one inside an old birdhouse on the oak tree, angled perfectly to catch license plates. I connected them all to a cloud server, set up alerts on my phone. Motion detected. I tested it. I walked in front of the birdhouse. 3 seconds later, my phone buzzed. A crystal-clear image of me looking worried and tired appeared on the screen. It worked. I sat on the floor of my living room, surrounded by drill bits and sawdust. I felt safer, but also incredibly sad. I was 35 years old, rigging my childhood home with surveillance equipment because I couldn't trust my own parents not to rob me. This wasn't normal. I knew that. But as I looked at the dark windows, imagining my father's desperate face, I knew it was necessary. The next morning, my last day in Washington, I had one final meeting. I drove to Port Angeles to meet Silas. Silas was my oldest friend. We'd survived high school together, bonding over being outcasts in a town of fishermen and loggers. Now he was a ruthless real estate attorney, with a sharp mind and a soft spot for conservation. We met at a diner near the harbor. I slid into the booth opposite him. He looked at my face and frowned. "You look like you've been to war," Silas said, signaling the waitress for coffee. "I feel like it," I admitted. "They came yesterday. They want to sell the house to a developer. Dad's in trouble, Silas. I heard him on the phone." Silas nodded grimly. "That tracks. I've heard rumors. Conrad's been seen at the casinos down south more often than usual, and he's been trying to leverage his own assets, but the banks are tapping him out." "He's desperate," I said, "and he thinks he can bully me into selling." "He can't sell it legally," Silas said, taking a sip of coffee. "The deed is in your name, Sully." "I know, but what if he forges my signature? What if he finds a shady notary? I'm going to be 3,000 miles away in Maine." Silas tapped his fingers on the table. "We need a poison pill, something that makes the land worthless to a developer, even if they do manage to trick a title company." He pulled a file out of his briefcase. "I've been looking at your research data, the marbled murrelet." "The birds?" I asked. "Yes, you've documented a nesting pair on the North Ridge, right?" "Yes, for 3 years." "Perfect," Silas grinned. "We file an update to the existing conservation easement. We explicitly designate the North Ridge as a critical habitat for an endangered species. We file it with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the county records." "What does that do?" "It freezes development," Silas explained. "If a developer buys that land, they can't cut a single tree within 500 feet of those nests without a federal permit, and getting that permit takes 5 years and $1 million in environmental impact studies. Basically, the land becomes radioactive to anyone who wants to build a resort." "But it protects the birds," I said, a small smile forming. "For the birds, and it protects you, even if your dad manages to trick a title company."
"Sell it. The buyer will sue him for fraud the moment they realize they bought a bird sanctuary instead of a hotel site." I signed the papers right there on the greasy diner table. It felt like signing a declaration of war, but also a declaration of independence. "File it," I said. "Make it official." Maine was a shock to the system. I landed in Portland and drove 3 hours north to the research station. The landscape was harder here: granite rocks, icy water, and a wind that felt like it had knives in it. The station was a collection of small cabins clinging to a rocky promontory. Isolated, quiet. Exactly what I needed. I met my team the first night: me, a geologist named Sarah, and a local boat captain and field specialist named Liam. Liam was 32, with a beard that looked like it could sandwood and eyes that were surprisingly kind. He helped me carry my gear into my cabin. "You packed light for 18 months, he noted, lifting my single duffel bag. "I left in a hurry," I said. "Needed to get away." "Family," he guessed. "Something like that." We fell into a routine quickly. Up at dawn, out on the boat to measure sediment erosion, freezing our hands off collecting samples, back to the station to enter data. It was grueling work, but it was honest. Liam was a revelation. Competent, quiet, deeply respectful. We spent hours on the boat talking. He told me about his family. His parents lived 2 towns over, ran a small bakery. He went to dinner there every Sunday. "You should come sometime," he offered one day as we scrubbed down the deck. "Mom makes a blueberry pie that will change your life." "I don't want to intrude," I said. "It's not intruding." He smiled. "It's family. We just hang out. It's no big deal." It sounded like a foreign language to me. Family without drama, without demands, without improved asset value. I checked my phone constantly during those first few weeks. I checked the camera feeds. The house in Washington sat empty, gray, silent. No cars in the driveway. No movement inside. I started to relax. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe my refusal had actually worked, and my father had moved on to some other scheme. I was wrong. About a month into my stay, a package arrived. A large box, wrapped in brown paper. I opened it in the common room. Inside was a thick, hand-knitted wool sweater, a box of expensive chocolates, and a card. The card read, "Thinking of you in the cold. Keep warm." Love, Mom and Dad. I stared at it. My mother hadn't knitted anything since 1995. Nice sweater, Liam said, walking in with a mug of coffee. From the folks? Yeah, I said, touching the wool. It was soft. It's weird. Why weird? They don't do this. Gifts usually come with strings attached. That evening, my mother called. I hesitated before answering, watching the screen buzz. Finally, I picked up. Did you get the package, sweetie? Her voice was chirpy, bright. I did, Mom. The sweater is beautiful. Did you make it? I did. I've been taking classes. Your father and I have been making some changes. He's joined a painting group. Can you believe it, Conrad? Painting landscapes. She laughed. It sounded almost genuine. We just wanted to say we're sorry, Morgan, about the last visit. We were stressed. Dad was, well, you know how he gets about money, but he sorted it out. We just want to be a family again. He sorted it out? I asked, skepticism creeping into my voice. The liquidity issue? Oh, yes. He found a private investor for one of his other projects. It's all fine. We just miss you. We want you to focus on your work and not worry about us. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. I was lonely and isolated, despite Liam's company. The little girl inside me who just wanted her mommy to love her woke up. Thanks, Mom, I said softly. I miss you, too. We'll check in on the house for you from time to time, okay? Just to make sure the pipes don't freeze. No pressure, just helping out. Okay, I said. Thanks. I hung up, feeling lighter. Maybe they really had changed. Maybe the scare of almost losing me had woken them up. That was the beginning of the campaign. For the next 2 months, they were perfect. Weekly calls, little gifts. Paige even liked my posts on Instagram. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Thanksgiving arrived in November. I couldn't afford to fly back to Washington, and honestly, I didn't want to risk breaking the fragile peace with my parents. Liam invited me to his parents' house. Come on, he said. It's going to be loud, chaotic, and there will be too much food. You'll love it. I agreed. We drove to his parents' house, a cozy, cluttered cottage that smelled of cinnamon and yeast. His mother, a short, round woman named Martha, hugged me the moment I walked in. You must be Morgan. Liam talks about you non-stop. Come in, you poor frozen thing. Here, have some cider. His father, a retired fisherman with a crushing handshake, slapped Liam on the back. Good to see you, son. Boat running okay? Runs great, Pop. I sat in the corner of the kitchen, watching them. They argued about football. They teased each other. They laughed. But there was no tension. No underlying current of transaction. When Liam's dad asked him about work, he listened. He didn't ask how much money Liam was making. He didn't suggest Liam should get a real job. At dinner, they went around the table, saying what they were thankful for. I'm thankful for this food, Martha said. And that Liam finally brought a girl home who eats carbohydrates. Everyone laughed. I laughed, too, but my chest hurt. When it was Liam's turn, he looked at his parents. I'm thankful you guys helped me with the down payment on the new engine. I'll pay you back next season, I promise. Don't worry about it, his dad waved a hand. It's an investment in you. You're our son. We're a team. We're a team, I excused myself and went to the bathroom. I locked the door and turned on the faucet so they wouldn't hear me sobbing. I cried for the family I never had. I cried because seeing what a healthy family looked like made my own reality unbearable. My father didn't see me as a team member. He saw me as an employee who was underperforming. My mother didn't want to feed me. She wanted to leverage me. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were red. "Wake up, Morgan," I whispered to my reflection. "Don't fall for the sweater. Don't fall for the cookies. It's a lie." I washed my face and went back out. Liam gave me a concerned look, but he didn't pry. He just put a piece of pie in front of me and squeezed my hand under the table. That night, back at the research station, I logged into the security cameras for the first time in weeks. The house was dark, but as I scrolled through the event log, I noticed something. There were gaps. Times when the cameras had gone offline for an hour or two. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the main winter. 2 days later, my phone rang. It wasn't my parents. It was Mrs. Gable, my 80-year-old neighbor in Washington. "Morgan, dear." Her voice was crackly, faint. "Mrs. Gable." "Hi. Is everything okay?" "Well, I don't want to be a bother, but I thought you should know. I saw people walking on your ridge today. I know you said you were away." My grip on the phone tightened. Who were they? I couldn't see faces clearly. My eyes aren't what they used to be. But there were 3 men. They were wearing those bright orange vests. Surveyors, maybe. And I saw a black car parked down the road, hidden behind the spruce grove. It looked like your father's car. My father's car? I think so. It was shiny, out of place. Did they go into the house? I didn't see them go in. They had a tripod. Thank you, Mrs. Gable. You did the right thing calling me. I hung up. I pulled up the camera app immediately. Nothing. The driveway camera showed an empty road. The porch camera showed nothing. They parked down the road. They were smart. They knew I might have cameras. Or at least they were being cautious. They were surveying the land from the perimeter, staying out of the motion sensor zones. The painting class was a lie. The private investor was a lie. They were moving forward with the sale. They were just doing it quietly, waiting for everything to be ready before they struck. I called Silas. "They're back," I said. Mrs. Gable saw surveyors. "I see it," Silas said. "I've been monitoring the credit inquiries on your dad. He's getting desperate. The loan sharks in Vegas are squeezing him. He has until the end of the year." "That's 3 weeks away," I said. "Exactly. If he's going to move, he's going to move now." I stopped sleeping. I kept my iPad next to my bed, the camera feed open 24/7. It happened 3 nights later. It was 2 a.m. in Washington, 5 a.m. in Maine. I was awake, drinking coffee, staring at the screen. A notification popped up, * motion detected. Living room, * my heart stopped. I tapped the screen. The night vision clicked on, bathing my living room in a ghostly green light. A beam of a flashlight cut through the dark. A figure walked into the frame. It was a man. He was wearing gloves and a hat, but I knew that walk. I knew the slump of those shoulders. It was Conrad. He didn't break a window. He didn't kick down the door. He walked right in. How? Then I remembered. Years ago, when I was in college, I had given a spare key to my mother for emergencies. I had asked for it back after the funeral, and she said she had lost it. She hadn't lost it. She had kept it for 10 years. Just in case. Conrad walked to the center of the room. He was holding a phone to his ear. "I'm in," he whispered. The audio from the camera was faint, but in the silence of the empty house, it was audible. Yeah, the place is empty. It's a bit dusty, but it cleans up nice. He walked over to the window, shining the light on the walls. No, she has no idea. She's freezing her ass off in Maine. We're good to go. Listen, tell the buyer we can close next Friday. I'll have the notary ready. Yeah, Barry is on board. He'll stamp anything for a bottle of scotch. Barry. Barry Miller, my father's old drinking buddy. A disbarred paralegal who used to hang out at the country club before he got caught embezzling. Friday, Conrad said. Prepare the wire transfer. 850,000. Done. He turned and walked out, locking the door behind him. I sat in the dark cabin, shaking. I felt violated. Not just because he broke in, but because of the casual cruelty of it. She has no idea. Freezing her ass off. He didn't care about me. He never had. I was just an obstacle to be circumvented. I recorded the clip. I saved it to my phone, to the cloud, and emailed it to Silas. Then I woke up Liam. They did it, I said, showing him the video. They are selling it next Friday. Liam looked at the screen, then at me. His face hardened. What are you going to do? I'm going to let them, I said. I'm going to let them sign the papers. I'm going to let them take the money. Why? Because attempted fraud is a slap on the wrist, I said, my voice cold. But wire fraud? Selling property you don't own for nearly $1 million? That's federal prison. I looked at the ghost of my father on the screen. You want the house, Dad? I whispered. Come and take it. This was it. The trap was set. My parents thought they had one, but they had no idea what was waiting for them. The sun rose over the Atlantic, painting the Maine sky in bruised shades of purple and orange, but I hadn't slept. I was still sitting at the small wooden table in the cabin, the video of my father breaking into my home playing on a loop on my laptop screen. Liam sat across from me, holding a mug of coffee. He hadn't said a word for 20 minutes. He just watched me, letting me process the betrayal. So, I said, my voice raspy from silence. They are doing it next Friday. You have the evidence, Liam said, pointing to the screen. You have him on video breaking and entering. You have audio of him conspiring to commit fraud. Call the cops, Morgan. Stop the sale. If I call the cops now, I said, looking out at the frozen coastline, he will spin it. He'll say he was just checking on the pipes. He'll say the conversation about the sale was just hypothetical. He'll say Barry the notary made a mistake. He will wiggle out of it. He always does. So what's the play? I need him to cross the line, I said. I need him to sign the deed. I need him to take the money. Once that wire transfer hits his account, it's not just a misunderstanding. It's federal wire fraud. It's grand larceny. I picked up my phone and called Silas. It was only 5 a.m. in Seattle, but he answered on the first ring. I saw the video, Silas said. His voice was grim. Conrad is bolder than I thought. We are letting it happen, Silas, I said. We are going to let them walk right up to the edge of the cliff. Good, he said. We need to know exactly who is involved and how deep this goes. I'm going to start digging into Barry Miller and this private lender your dad mentioned. I want everything, I said. I want to know who holds the debt. I want to know who the developers are. I want to know what they ate for breakfast. Consider it done, Silas said. Get some sleep, Morgan. You have a war to fight next week. I hung up. I didn't sleep, though. I started packing. By noon, Silas had sent me a dossier. The first target was Barry Miller. I remembered Barry from my childhood. He was a red-faced man who always smelled like gin and cheap mints. He used to golf with my father. I didn't know much about him then, other than the fact that he made me uncomfortable. According to Silas's research, Barry's life had fallen apart 5 years ago. He had been a paralegal at a mid-sized firm, but he got caught embezzling client funds to pay for online poker debts. He was disbarred, fired, and narrowly avoided jail time by snitching on his boss. Since then, he had been drifting. No job, no license, but he had kept his notary stamp. He's the weak link, Silas explained over the phone as I scrolled through Barry's court records. A notary stamp is supposed to expire. Barry never renewed his because he couldn't. He's using an expired, invalid stamp. That alone makes any document he touches void. But a title company won't know that unless they look closely. And if Conrad is rushing the closing, they might not look closely until it's too late. So my dad is paying him to forge my signature? Exactly. Barry gets a bottle of scotch and maybe a few $100. And your dad gets a power of attorney document that lets him sell your house. It's pathetic, I said. It's criminal, Silas corrected. First-degree forgery. What about the debt? I asked. Why is Dad so desperate? That, Silas's side is the scary part. Silas sent over a second file. It was a credit report, but deeper. It included information from private databases most people don't have access to. Your father has been bleeding money for a decade, Silas said. The house in Seattle, mortgaged to the hilt. The cars leased. The country club membership past due. But the real problem is a loan he took out 6 months ago. From a bank? No. From a private lending group based in Las Vegas called Silver State Holdings. That is a polite name for loan sharks, Morgan. They lend high-interest cash to gamblers who have tapped out their credit cards. How much? $150,000. With interest, it's now closer to $200,000. And the term sheet says it's due in full on December 31st. I looked at the calendar. It was mid-December. If he doesn't pay. These aren't the kind of people who send you a collection letter, Silas said darkly. They send people to break your knees. That's why he's panicking. He's not selling your house to fund a retirement condo. He's selling it to save his life. I stared at the number. $150,000. He had gambled it away. Probably on sports or poker, or stocks he didn't understand. And now he was willing to burn down my life to cover his tracks. He's terrified, I whispered. He should be, Silas said. But that doesn't give him the right to steal your inheritance. No, I agreed. It doesn't. The final piece of the puzzle was the buyer, Apex Coastal Developers. I looked into them, Silas said. They are legitimate in the sense that they actually build things, but they are monsters. They specialize in buying up distressed coastal properties, rezoning them, and putting up high-density luxury lodges. They don't care about the environment. They pave over wetlands. They cut down old-growth forests. They want to build a 50-unit lodge. I remembered my father saying on the video, 50 units. Silas confirmed. They would need to clear-cut the entire North Ridge. Your grandfather's spruce trees, gone in a week. The tide pools, runoff from the parking lot would poison them within a month. My stomach churned. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the destruction of everything I loved. It was about erasing the history of the land. The sale price is $850,000, Silas said. It's a cash offer. Fast close. Apex thinks they're getting a steal because the land is worth double that if it's developable. Your dad is selling cheap because he needs the money fast. But the land isn't developable, I said, a small, cold smile forming on my lips. Is it? Not anymore, Silas said. Did you file it? I asked. I filed it this morning, Silas said. The Critical Habitat Designation Update. It is officially logged in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Database and the County Recorder's Office. The timestamp is 9:02 a.m. So, it's active. It is active. As of this morning, your property is a federally protected sanctuary for the marbled murrelet. Any commercial development is strictly prohibited. Will the title company see it? If they do a deep search, yes, Silas said. But Apex is rushing. They are relying on your father's word and Barry's stamp. They might miss it. And even if they don't miss it, we need to make sure they don't see it until after they wire the money. How do we do that? We pray for incompetence, Silas said. And knowing Barry Miller, incompetence is guaranteed. The trap was set. My father was selling a promise he couldn't keep. Apex was buying a product that didn't exist. And I was holding the detonator. Wednesday morning, 2 days before the closing, I packed my bag. I told Liam I had to go. I'm coming with you, he said, standing in the doorway of my cabin. No, I said. This is ugly, Liam. I don't want you to see it. I've seen ugly, he said. I'm not letting you walk into a lion's den alone. It's not a lion's den, I said, zipping up my jacket. It's a nest of vipers, and I know how to handle them. Please stay here. Watch the station. I'll be back. He hesitated, then nodded. Call me every day. If you don't call, I'm getting on a plane. I promise. I drove to Portland. I flew to Seattle. The flight felt like it lasted a year. I sat in the middle seat, staring at the seat back in front of me, rehearsing what I would say, rehearsing how I would look at my mother and not cry. I landed in Seattle at 10 p.m. It was raining, of course. I rented a gray sedan, something generic, something that wouldn't stand out. I didn't want my parents to spot my Subaru. I drove out to the peninsula in the dark. The familiar roads twisted and turned through the forest. I drove past the turnoff to my house. I couldn't go home. Not yet. I checked into a Motel 6 in the next town over. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and lemon cleaner. I threw my bag on the bed and sat down. I opened the camera app. The house was quiet, but I could see evidence of activity. There were muddy footprints on the hardwood floor in the hallway. A coffee cup had been left on the kitchen counter. They were getting ready. I lay down on the lumpy mattress, fully clothed. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. Tomorrow was Thursday, preparation day. Friday was the execution. Friday morning broke with a heavy gray mist hanging over the peninsula. It was the kind of weather that muffled sound, making the world feel small and intimate. I checked out of the motel at 8 a.m. I drove to an old logging road about a quarter mile from my property. I parked the car deep in the brush and covered it with a tarp, just in case. I hiked through, overlooking the driveway and the back of the house. I settled in to wait. At 10 a.m., the parade began. My father's black sedan arrived first. He got out, looking agitated, pacing the driveway, talking on his phone. Then my mother arrived in her SUV, followed by Paige. They started carrying boxes out of their cars and into the house. They weren't moving things out. They were staging the house, making it look presentable. At 11 a.m., a moving truck arrived. My heart hammered in my chest. Movers. 2 men in blue coveralls got out. My father pointed to the house. They went inside. A few minutes later, they came out carrying my grandfather's leather armchair. The chair he sat in every night to read. The chair that still smelled like his pipe tobacco. They didn't put it in the truck. They walked it over to a dumpster that had been delivered earlier that morning. They threw it in. I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle a scream. Tears pricked my eyes. They were throwing away my history. They were treating my life like garbage, to be cleared out for new owners. I wanted to run down there. I wanted to scream at them. But I stopped myself. Wait, I told myself. Wait for the money. If I stopped them now, they would just apologize and try again later. I needed the crime to be completed. I watched them empty my living room. My books went into the dumpster. My rugs. The handmade quilt my grandmother sewed. I memorized every item. I added it to the tally of what they owed me. 1 p.m. The developer arrived. A massive silver SUV pulled up. 2 men and a woman got out. They looked like sharks in human suits, expensive coats, sharp smiles, dead eyes. Then a beat-up minivan rattled up the driveway. Barry Miller, the ghost notary. They all went inside. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. I switched to the kitchen camera. They were gathering around the oak table. My table, it's a beautiful piece of land, the main developer, Mr. Henderson, was saying. We're eager to break ground next week. We are happy to pass it on to someone with vision, my father said, pouring champagne into plastic cups. My daughter, she just let it go to waste. Well, to new beginnings, Henderson said. They sat down. Barry Miller pulled out his stamp. Papers were shuffled. Here is the deed, my father said. And here is the power of attorney signed by Morgan. Barry stamped it. And the wire transfer? My father asked, his voice trembling slightly. Initiated, Henderson said, tapping on his tablet. $850,000 should hit your account momentarily. I held my breath, staring at my phone screen in the woods. 2 minutes passed. Small talk, laughter. Then my father's phone dinged. He looked at it. A massive grin broke across his face. Received, he said. We are closed. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Silas. Silas, the bank alert just triggered. The money is in. The deed is recorded electronically. It is done. The crime is complete. I stood up. My legs were stiff, but my resolve was iron. Time to go to a party, I whispered. I hiked back to my car. I drove it onto the main road and turned into my driveway. I didn't slow down. I drove right up to the front porch, blocking the developer's SUV. Gravel crunched loudly under my tires. I slammed the car door and marched up the steps. I could hear them inside. Cheers. I walked through the open front door. The scene froze. My father was holding a plastic cup of champagne halfway to his mouth. My mother was laughing at something Paige said. The developers were smiling. Barry Miller was putting his stamp back in his bag. Get out of my house, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a knife. My mother dropped her cup. Champagne splashed onto the hardwood floor. Morgan, she gasped. You're in Maine. Surprise, I said. I looked at the developers. Who are you people? I'm Mr. Henderson, the man said, stepping forward, looking annoyed. The owner of this property. And you are trespassing. You don't own anything, I said. And you, I pointed a shaking finger at my father, are a thief. My father's face went from shock to a deep, violent purple. What are you doing here? He hissed. I live here, I said. Did you forget? We have a contract. Henderson shouted, waving a piece of paper. Signed by your father, who holds your power of attorney. I never signed a power of attorney, I said, looking Henderson in the eye. My father forged my signature. And that man, I pointed at Barry, is a disbarred paralegal with an expired stamp. Barry looked like he was going to vomit. He grabbed his bag and started inching toward the door. That's a lie! Conrad roared. She's lying. She's mentally unstable. Show me the proof, Dad, I challenged him. Show me the email where I agreed. Show me the text. You agreed verbally, he screamed. On the phone. I have cameras, I said calmly. I have microphones. I have you on video breaking into my house 3 nights ago. I have you on audio planning the forgery. The color drained from Henderson's face. He looked at my father. Is that true? No. Of course not. Conrad yelled. He was panic-stricken now. The walls were closing in. He marched over to me, towering over me. You ungrateful little. You are ruining everything. I did this for the family. For your mother. For Paige. You did it for your gambling debt, I said. $150,000 to Silver State Holdings in Vegas. Due December 31st. That was the breaking point. Conrad lunged. He didn't think, he just reacted. He swung his open hand and connected with my cheek. The sound echoed in the empty room. The force of the blow knocked me back into the doorframe. My head snapped to the side. My lips split instantly, warm blood filling my mouth. I am your father, he screamed, his eyes bulging. You obey me. You do as you are told. Silence. Absolute, terrified silence. My mother covered her mouth. Paige looked away. The developers looked horrified. Henderson took a step back, realizing he was in the middle of a domestic violence crime scene. I slowly turned my head back to look at him. I touched my lip. I looked at the blood on my fingers. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I smiled. A cold, broken smile. You just assaulted me, I whispered. Thank you. Get out, he screamed, shoving me toward the door. Get out before I kill you. I'm leaving, I said. But you're the one who's going to lose everything. I walked out. I got in my car. I backed down the driveway. As I drove away, I saw Henderson shouting at my father. I saw my mother sinking into a chair, sobbing. The woods. I knew these trails better than the back of my hand. I moved silently, stepping on moss to dampen my footsteps. I reached my vantage point, a cluster of thick ferns on a hill was over. I drove back to the motel. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding an ice pack to my cheek. My hand was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I dialed Silas. Did you hear it? I asked. I heard it, Silas said. His voice was shaking with rage. I was on the open line. I recorded everything. The confession, the assault. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said. My lip is cut. But I'm fine. I'm calling the police right now, Silas said. No, I said. Wait. Send the emails first, Morgan. Send them, Silas. Burn it down. Okay, Silas said. Sending now. He hit send. Email 1, to the Sheriff's Department. Subject, report of assault, forgery, and grand larceny. Attachments, video of the break-in. Audio of the forgery planning. Audio of the assault. Email 2, to Apex Coastal Developers Legal Team. Subject, notice of void title and conservation easement. Attachments: the affidavit of forgery, proof of Barry Miller's disbarment, and the official U.S. Fish and Wildlife designation proving the land was a protected habitat. Email 3, to the bank. Subject: fraud alert. It's done, Silas said. The bomb is dropped. I hung up. I turned off my phone. I lay back on the bed and closed my eyes. I slept for 14 hours. It was the sleep of the dead. When I woke up on Saturday morning, the sun was shining. It felt mocking. I turned on my phone. It vibrated continuously for 5 minutes. 52 missed calls. 87 text messages. I scrolled through them, watching the timeline of destruction. Friday, 3:30 p.m. page, Dad is freaking out. Henderson is threatening to sue. Fix this, Morgan, Friday, 4 p.m. Mom, Morgan, please pick up. Dad is having chest pains. The bank froze the account, Friday, 5 p.m. Dad, you ungrateful brat. Call Henderson. Tell him it was a mistake. Tell him you gave verbal permission. Do it now, Friday, 6 p.m. Dad, I will kill you if you don't fix this. Then the tone shifted. Friday, 7:30 p.m. Mom, there are police cars in the driveway. Morgan, what did you do? Friday, 8 p.m. page, they are arresting Dad. They put him in handcuffs. They are taking him away. Morgan, Friday, 8:15 p.m. Mom, voicemail, I listened to it. She was hysterical. Morgan, they took him. They say it's a felony. They say he stole the money. Please, baby, tell them we're family. Tell them not to take him. Then a text from Henderson's lawyer to my email, we are rescinding the contract immediately. We are suing your father for fraud and misrepresentation. We will be seeking maximum damages, I sat there, drinking stale coffee. I typed one message. I sent it to the group chat with Mom, Dad, and Paige, you sold my trust for $850,000. You forged my name. You hit me in the face. You told me to obey. Now you pay the bill. Enjoy prison, then I blocked them. All of them. The fallout was nuclear. Because Silas had sent the conservation easement document to Henderson, Apex realized immediately that they had been duped. Even if the sale had been legal, the land was worthless to them. They couldn't build their lodge. They sued my parents for fraud, breach of contract, and damages. They wanted their $850,000 back, plus legal fees. But the money was gone. The bank had frozen it, but the loan sharks in Vegas had already put a lien on my parents' assets. The house in Seattle, the one my parents lived in, was foreclosed on. They lost their cars. They lost their country club status. They lost their friends. My father was charged with wire fraud, first-degree forgery, and assault. Because the amount was over a certain limit, the feds took the case. He took a plea deal to avoid a 10-year sentence. He got 3 years in federal prison. My mother was charged as an accomplice, but she pleaded ignorance. She got 5 years of probation and community service, but she was destitute. She had to move into a state-subsidized efficiency apartment. Paige? The bank of Dad was closed forever. She had to get a job as a waitress to pay rent in a shared apartment. She tried to blast me on social media, but the internet sleuths found the court records. They saw the video of my father hitting me. She was shamed into silence. 6 months later, in June, I pulled into the driveway of the house on the peninsula. The moss was still on the roof. The air still smelled of salt and cedar. I walked inside. It was empty. My furniture was gone, lost to the dumpster. But the house stood. I walked out onto the back porch. Liam was there. He had flown down from Maine to help me move back in. He was leaning on the railing, watching the ocean. It's a fixer-upper, he joked, looking at the empty living room. It's a home, I corrected him. I walked up to him and took his hand. He squeezed it. Did you hear from him? Liam asked. My dad? I shook my head. He sent a letter from prison blaming me, saying I ruined the family. He ruined the family, Liam said firmly. You just survived it. I looked up at the North Ridge. Through my binoculars, I could see movement in the high branches of the ancient spruce trees, the marbled murrelets. They were nesting. They were safe. The land was safe. I had lost my parents. I had lost my sister. I had lost the illusion of a happy childhood. But I had saved the one thing that mattered. I had saved the sanctuary. Ready to start over? Liam asked. Yeah, I said, taking a deep breath of the clean, salty air. I'm ready. So that is my story. I sent my own father to prison to save my home. Some people say I went too far. Some say blood is thicker than water. But I say, sometimes you have to cut off a limb to save the body. What do you think? Was my revenge justified, or did I go too far? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts.